How you going, guys? It's Khoa here. In this video I just want to share with you another book review on another fantastic personal finance book. This book is different in terms of the way it teaches you on managing your finances. You might come across lots of books out there that's, it's really technical. It covers lots of mutual funds, investing, buy its property, and all the statistics and everything, but there's not that many books out there that covers like stories, parables, and such things like that. So in this video I just want to share with you a fantastic book that I highly recommend. I read this several years ago, and it's also recommended by lots and lots of people as well. It's also sold over 2 million copies, and it's a really fantastic book. So the book is called The Richest Man in Babylon. So it's written by a guy named George S Clason, and he wrote this book quite some time ago. So yeah, I think it's been around for like 20 years or something like that. But basically, the way we remember things, I just want to get into this, is the way we remember things is we tend to remember stories, right? So we remember stories, we remember parables and the meaning behind those stories. So that's the way this book is presented. It's written in story format, and the story takes place in Greek mythology, and basically that's where it starts. The richest man in Babylon, and it just goes to show there's all these different types of little stories within this book that teaches you the essence of how to manage your finances. So George S Clason, he gives you a few cures to increase your well-being in terms of finances. So in this chapter, increasing your ability to earn, he says, the many things that come to a man's life rich with gainful experiences, such things as the following a man must do if he respects himself. He must pay his debts with all his promptness and his power, not purchasing that for which he is unable to pay. He must take care of his family, that they may think and speak well of him. He must make a will of that record, that in case the God calls him, proper and honourable division of his property must be accomplished. He must have the compassion upon those who are injured and smitten by misfortune, aid them within reasonable limits. He must do deeds of thoughtfulness and those dear to him. So it's really so what George is saying. George S Clason is saying that in order for you to increase your income and your ability to earn, don't forget to take care of the ones who take care of you. So that's another way of how he was writing it. So that was a really good one. There's also a chapter called the Meet the Goddess of Good Luck. So he talks about in order to have more luck in your life, you must be humble, and in order to attract more of it. So it's really hard to really explain the concepts of this book, actually, because it's just written in story format, and you really have to just read it through. What George S Clason is saying, that in order for you to have more luck, you must be a man of action. So in that chapter, the moral of the story is men of action are favored by the goddess of good luck. I did a recent video on the law of attraction, and the law of attraction, it's all about you visualize what you want and then you attract it into your life. But the flaw behind this of the law of attraction is that it teaches you not to really work that hard. If you watch The Secret, it just makes you just visualize and doesn't encourage you to take that much action. So what George S Clason is saying, that you must take action, and therefore the goddess of good luck will come knocking on your door. I'll read you the 5 laws of gold in one of the chapters. So law number 1, gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who has put by not less than 1/10 of his earning to create an estate for his future, that of his family. So what he's saying is that you set aside 1/10 of your income, and therefore that 1/10 will slowly increase. So take for example, you might go out there, you might work, and a lot of people just spend everything that they earn. So what George S Clason is saying, you set aside at least 1/10 of your fortune, and therefore that will accumulate. Law number 2, gold laboureth diligently and contently for the wise owner who finds it for profitable employment, multiply even as flocks of the field. So the second law, what George is saying is that you use that gold, or you use your income to invest in other vehicles that will increase your revenue or your gold. Okay, so the third one says, gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under advice of men wise in its handling. So George is saying in this one that in order for you to protect your own fortune, you must be the cautious person to do that. Because if you're not cautious with your fortune, if you're not concerned about budgeting, if you're not concerned about your well-being financially, you'll lose it, and you'll also fall over to the ones who have the knowledge, right? You might give all your money away to the financial advisor who might invest it into something they don't really care about. So what George is saying is that you're the only one that's most important to your own financial well-being. You're the one that cares the most, so you should be the one who will be most cautious over it. Law number 4: gold slippeth away from the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar, or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. This is a good one. Have you ever come across a situation in the past where you've put money into a venture and you didn't really understand the venture, and like you didn't really understand the business and everything, but it just looked pretty good on paper? Well, what George is saying is that gold, or your money, will slip away. It will actually fall away if you put your money into areas where you don't really understand. And this is actually true, because Warren Buffett, he's obviously, you know that he's the most richest man, one of the most richest men in the world, and he built his fortune purely by investing. And his advice is that he only invests and participates in opportunities within his circle of influence. Like, there is a lot of opportunities out there, but there's only a small circle that he invests in, and that's because he understands that circle so well, and he knows everything in there. So what George is saying is that money will slip away if you start investing in other areas that you don't know. So that's a really good piece of advice there. The fifth law of gold is that gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or would followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers. Don't try and go for the shortcuts. Don't think that you can go for the $1 million overnight, the 100 grand a month that you see on the internet. Someone's selling some sort of home business that claims to be making 10 grand a month, and whatever it is, if you just click a button. You'll start losing money if you try and do those type of things, because there's no such thing as like a overnight success, as you know. So those are the 5 laws of gold in that one chapter. So that was only just one chapter on the 5 laws of gold. There's also a chapter that, one of my favorite chapters. I read this book quite some time ago. Actually, it must be like 10 years ago, and there was that one chapter I've always remembered, and it always stayed with me for quite some time. And that's the power of stories, isn't it? Because when you remember a story, and then that lesson stays with you for life. Another great tip here: better a little caution than a great regret. So what George is saying, it's always a good idea to just be a bit cautious than having a huge regret, right? So be cautious with your money. Take time, take good care of it and everything, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a bit cautious, because if you're not cautious, then you're going to be regretting it big time. So the chapter that my favorite chapter in the book is the Walls of Babylon. So it tells the story where there's people inside the walls of Babylon that are struggling, and they're really scared, and they're really scared of the enemy's going to break through the wall and they're going to kill everyone, right? And there's nothing that they can do. So he just goes on and talks about that, and over over a long period of time, this enemy just keeps attacking these walls, keeps attacking, but over time they just give up, and they can't break down this wall. They can't get into Babylon. And the moral of the story is, those walls of Babylon is your financial fortress. So be thankful that you've set up a very, very, very strong wall or fortress around your finances. And that's the message that he's trying to say in that particular chapter in the Walls of Babylon. And finally ends that chapter. It's only a couple pages, but he ends that chapter: we cannot afford to be without adequate protection. See, so there you go. So if you built up like a nice nest egg, or you built up some savings and stuff, you cannot you need to protect it, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Someone's going to come in and try and take it all. You don't know what's going to happen. You might get divorced and so forth, right? So you always need to protect it. Find ways to shield yourself from anyone going in and taking away all your money, because these things can happen. And sometimes you might not have the ability to fight back. The only ability you have is just in defense mode, right? So just like for the walls of Babylon, the people that was inside Babylon, they couldn't fight back, but the enemy was trying to attack in, and luckily the walls of Babylon protected the fortress. So there you go. So yeah, there's a lot of really great passages in this book. I love this book. It's one of those books that if you've read it once, read it again, and it's a great personal finance book. Highly recommend for you to check it out. Go get it. It's The Richest Man in Babylon by George S Clason, and it's a fantastic read, very entertaining. You'll probably finish it in I don't know. I think you'll probably finish it in maybe about an hour or 2 hours or something. So have a cup of coffee, go through it, and read The Richest Man in Babylon. Thanks.